my Cricut friends that are eager to learn how to make these single pocket holders for your invitation suite, I have got you a full tutorial on how I went about making these. These are honestly pretty simple to make, and it's going to cost you a lot less to just buy the cardstock and make these on your own compared to the pre-done ones. All the tools and materials that I use to create these, I'm going to be linking on my Amazon storefront and LTK for you guys, so if you're confused on what I'm using, make sure you check there. Now, I do want to note, if you just don't have the patience to do this and want the express route, I do have this listing on my Etsy. Once you purchase, it gives you the direct link to the design space template, so you will be seeing this as soon as you open it. As you can see, the full flat lay for this design is going to come out to about 10.5 by 7.5 inches, which means you do not have to buy 12 by 12 cardstock. You can actually go with 8.5 by 11. That will also help when you're trying to save a little bit more money, and also you're going to have a lot more cardstock options. Now, for everyone else that wants to learn how to make this, let's get this started. We are going to go to the left side toolbar and we're going to grab a square. Whatever you want your card size to be is what you're going to input here. Make sure you hit the unlock icon before changing the size so it takes it off square, and I'm going to be changing mine to 5 by 7. We now just made the main base of the card. Preferably, I like to change this to a lighter color so I'm able to see my score lines later on, so I'm going to do that now. Next thing I'm going to be doing is creating the arch flap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually duplicate this rectangle and move it over to the side. It doesn't need to be perfect placement or anything for right now. We just want to put it over to the side so we kind of get an idea how this is going to line up next to it. Next, I'm going to go back over to my shapes toolbar here and I'm going to grab a circle. Taking advantage of the guides that it does kind of set for me, I'm going to kind of line it up over to the side along the rectangle edge. Now, honestly, this is going to have to be more of a preference on your end as far as what kind of arch you like. But what I recommend you take into consideration is your smallest card that you're going to be adding to your suite. So for the example you saw in the beginning of this video, I did make that height 5.5 for my RSVP card. So just based off experience and how I like to see things fit, I like to give an inch of comfort room. So in order to make sure you have the right height on this pocket envelope, we're going to make sure we kind of squeeze this into an oval. Now, one of the good things about the design space update is it does have these little snap guides. You'll notice when you play with it, it does kind of snap into place when you hit the bottom of other objects that are in your project. So right now I'm taking advantage of that and I'm making sure it's at the bottom of the rectangle on the right side. And as you can see here on the top, I'm just kind of scrubbing up and down, and I'm probably going to make this about 4 inches. Now that we have the height of the top of the arch for the pocket, I don't want you to move the top at all. Play with this circle oval object until you kind of like the arch and how it's hitting on the right side. You do want it to extend because you do not want it to be a perfect arch. We're going to need some room to make a flap. So in this entire process, I really just want you to focus on the arch from the left side of that rectangle to the right side. Also, just make sure that your circle is completely covering over the right rectangle's bottom half. Now that I think I'm pretty happy with this, I'm going to try making the slice so I can see what my pocket's looking like. So holding down shift, I want you to select the circle and the rectangle, and I want you to hit that slice button that I just did. You'll see on the right side layers toolbar that a bunch of results popped up. This extra piece of the circle we don't need, so I'm going to be deleting that. This other extra piece of the circle we no longer need as well, so I'm going to just take that off and delete that as well. And this top portion of the rectangle I'm no longer going to need as well, so here is the flap that I just created. And that's exactly how you're going to get your arch. Now, if you're really not feeling the look of it, or maybe you wanted more of an arch or less of an arch, you can always go back and then play with that circle once again. But honestly, I'm good with this, so I'm going to continue on. So once again, I'm going to go over to my shapes tab and I'm going to grab another square. I intentionally don't grab that rectangle that they provide because I don't want those rounded corners. For my side tabs that I'm going to be gluing down, I typically like to make them only 1/2 inch. Personally, I find this is the best size when I go to use my tape roller to adhere this to the main invite. So you can see on the top, I am just adjusting it to that, and then also we know the width of this is 5, so I'm just changing it to that. And you can see as I slide up, the guides are showing me that I have this perfectly aligned, so I know I'm good to stay there. And once again, I am just changing this to gray to keep everything cohesive. Now that we got the bottom tab of our pocket, we want to also make one for the right side to make sure this is going to really hold our cards in place. I could just flip this shape, but I'm just going to change my dimensions right in here. So I'm putting in 1/2 inch for my width, and I have to hit the unlock button so I can change the height of this. Now, honestly, I don't know the height of the right side of my arch, so I'm going to have to take my shape and I'm going to have to finagle it a bit until I get the right sizing. So bringing my shape close to the bottom here, I'm going to take advantage once again of those little snap guides, and it's telling me to align the top right there. And then I'm just dragging the bottom part of my rectangle until once again I get the snap grid. And based off all that, it looks like the height of this little rectangle tab is going to end up being 2 inches. I did accidentally mess with the width when it came to scaling it manually, so I am just putting back in that I want this to be 1/2 inch in width. And guys, we did the hardest part, which was creating all the shapes and kind of placing it out where we see fit. Now, the next thing we need to do to get this all to be one shape is we need to have all of our shapes touching each other. Definitely make sure you're taking advantage of zooming in as much as you need to ensure that they are all next to each other. And honestly, guys, I'm going to just fast forward so I could spare you guys guys the time. I'm literally a psycho perfectionist, so I will not stop until I know I have everything perfect. Now, when you think you have all your shapes touching, I want to make sure your alignment is perfect. So click and drag over those top 3 shapes to make sure those are all selected. And now we're going to go over to edit and then align. When you click that, a drop down will appear and you want to make sure you're selecting align bottom. Now with that tab still open, I want you to click and drag over the middle 2 layers. Coming back over to your tools tab, we want to go back to align and now we want to center horizontally. Doing those 2 steps is just going to ensure that our entire shape is all squared up with each other. Now the last and final step before we go ahead and make this into one shape is we need to create our score line. So in that shapes toolbar, once again, I am now grabbing a line this time. Without moving anything, I want you to click on this arch flap right here and I want you to copy the height of it. Once you copy the size of it, go back and click on your score line and now I want you to put in that height. Doesn't need to be exact, but you can paste it. I was just slightly over 4, so I'm just going to put 4 in there for now. Now place your score line in between those 2 shapes so we know exactly where we're going to need to fold when our Cricut goes ahead and makes this for us. Never be afraid to zoom in because that is going to make sure everything is perfect for you. When you feel like you've nailed that placement, go ahead and duplicate that score line, and now we want to do the same thing for those little side tabs. Without moving it, click on that side rectangle, copy the height, and now we want to take it to that score line and then paste that same height in. And once again, put the placement exactly where you see fit. And then I'm going to just repeat that same exact step for the bottom tab. Once you've completed that, it is now time to open up our layers tab and take all of our shapes and make it into one object. In order to do that, hold down shift and select all of the objects there. Do not select the score lines. Then come down to the bottom button here where it says combine and then weld. Those dark solid cut lines should disappear and all you should see are the score lines in between your shapes. If all those lines did not disappear, that means your shapes were not touching and you need to go back and make sure you make them touch. If yours were disappeared, go ahead and attach your score lines to your basic weld result. And then you are set to have this go ahead and make with your Cricut. It will score and cut so you are ready to go. Just a little proof right here that when you change the material size to 8.5 by 11 paper, it will turn and fit that. So even the Cricut Joy Extra can take on this kind of project. So if you were hoping to make one of these pocket holders for your invitation suite, make sure you give this video a save so you can follow along and try this for yourself.